All right, good afternoon. Hold on just a second. All right, good afternoon. Welcome back. We have about 2 minutes before we officially start, but again, so I'll just take a little bit of time to remind everyone, all our teachers, if you're virtual, to put your name and or your email address into the chat so that we get you credit for your attendance. Now this particular panel is near and dear to my heart. Tell you why in a minute. However, I just want to encourage everyone to actively participate. We do have some questions to get our presenters, our panel members started, but we really want questions. We want your questions, and to continue to move this panel. And so if you are virtual, you can type them in the chat. I have my handy dandy computer right here so that I can see them. If you are at Brown, of course, we'll give you opportunities to ask your questions and also here in the room. We really want your questions. All right. So once again, I am Joy Murphy. I'm the Director of Learning and Engagement here at the Dwight D. Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum and Boyhood Home. Today's panel, as part of our Civil Rights Conference, we really wanted to hear personal experiences of desegregation. This is not the only panel that we're having throughout the conference that will feature people's personal experiences. But what we really wanted to show is that these experiences did vary from place to place, from person to person, from age to age. It really did depend. So with that being said, it is 1:30, so I'll get started. I am pleased to welcome our two panel members. First of all, we have Dr. Clayton Bryce. And then we have Emma Murphy. And if you haven't figured out, that's my mommy. So I grew up with these stories. And so they are a part of who I am just because of my mom. And so I'm going to start off. I've already said your name, but if you can tell us what year you desegregated your school, and if you don't mind, how old you were at the time.
I desegregated in 1950. I was in the 7th grade, around 13 years old.
Okay.
I did not, or at least my school was not segregated till 1965.
Segregated.
And I was in the 11th grade at the time that it it integrated, but it really did not integrate during that time. We had what was called freedom of choice. And you didn't always get the letter that says you had a choice to attend. This was the way that my county got around Brown versus the Board of Education.
All right. And so with that, I'm going to ask each of you to actually tell your personal desegregation story.
My personal desegregation story. Well, I finished my last year at Vernon High School in Vernon, Florida. You have to understand that I came from a very rural county in Florida. Most of the schools that you heard about in the news were city schools, large, like Little Rock, like Montgomery, Alabama, like Gainesville, Florida. And there were it was really, really hard for the kids for integration. That really did not occur in the rural county. And it probably was because in our county, we were basically in the same boat when it came to economics. In my county, I lived less than a half a mile from one of my classmates who was white. And most of us, we just lived in the community. And my mom fished with some of my classmates who were white families, you know, because we live close to the creek and they all like fishing. So when I entered Vernon High School, there were 6 of us and the seniors, 6 blacks and seniors, 5 girls and 1 boy. And it was a little scary in the beginning, but my reasoning for attending was probably not the reason that most people look at it. Because as I said, we had freedom of choice. And you had to sign, or your parents had to sign a form that says that this is what you wanted to do. The schools, Washington County did not say, okay, we're gonna integrate all the schools. That did not happen. The first reason that I decided that I wanted to attend Vernon High School, that I wanted to know if I could compete. I knew I could compete at the black school. My oldest brother had graduated valedictorian. My oldest sister had graduated salutatorian. I knew I could compete. But you heard the stories. You know, black people are inferior. Black people will not be able to make it. They can't, you know, you just hear those stories. I didn't know black doctors. I didn't know black pharmacists, you know, because it was a rural area, there was no industry, anything there. So the number one reason is that I wanted to know if I could compete. Because if I could compete there, I could compete anywhere. The second reason was our bus, we were 32 miles from the high school, the black high school. So every day, and that was 32 miles straight. That didn't include all the dirt roads that the buses had to go, you know, travel to pick up kids. So basically, my trip was a 2-hour trip each way. And since the bus driver lived next door to me, that means I was the first one to get on and the last one to get off. The third reason was we received the broken chairs, the marked up chairs, could be the N word on it, could be anything on it, the torn books. You know, there may be books that we got that some of the pages were out of it. So our teachers had to compensate. I wanted I wanted decent books. I wanted decent desks. So that's was my third reason for going. When I got to Vernon High School, and as I said, I saw kids there that I knew in the community. It wasn't a real bad time. I had some good moments. I had some bad moments. I had some good teachers. I had some great teachers. I will never forget Mrs. Lottie Dykes, who was my English teacher, Mr. James Russ, who was my math teacher, and we had a science teacher. I can't remember his name right now, but they were some of the greatest teachers. I mean, I love my teachers at my old school, at my black school. I loved them. They knew my family. They, my being the baby of the family, they had a lot of expectations from me because my oldest brother had graduated valedictorian, my sister had graduated salutatorian, so they had a, high expectation. Well, that didn't happen at Vernon, but I like to believe that I made it happen. Because I got in there and I said, hey, I can study. My mama she was strong on education. She believed in education. So much that my brother was the first Black person in our community in South Washington County to graduate from college. And so I just got in and worked. Some of the teachers were real hard. Some of the teachers were extremely prejudiced. I had one particular teacher that she either refused or would not say Black, colored, or even Negro. And that was every day in class. She was my history teacher. And I could not, it was so, well, they spreaded us out because there's only 6 of us, so they spreaded us out. But it was 2 of us that was in the same history class. And I cannot tell you how it made me feel every time she would say the word, okay? I think, and I think she had the idea that we were basically inferior, that our learning skills were not up to par. And I think I and another young lady who went on to become a registered nurse, we kind of shook our idea about it. And so one thing that happened, at that time, the Vietnam War was going on. She had us to write a paper as to, our opinion on the Vietnam War. And, well, no, actually, the paper was on why equality for Black people. That was the paper. So for several days, I was like, I don't know, I should write my opinion because she may give me an F on this paper. But then I wrote it. I wrote the opinion, and my opinion was, if my people could go to Vietnam and fight, if my people, my great-grandfather, both of them on each side was Civil War veterans. I knew people who had been in World War I. Michael Robert was in World War I. I knew people who had been on World War II because that was my first cousin. I knew people who were with Korea. I knew people who were in Vietnam that graduated ahead of me and went to Vietnam. So I wrote the paper that stated, if we could fight in these wars, and then we have to come back to this country and be second-class citizen, why are we fighting wars in a foreign country? The paper got sent to Florida A&M University because she thought she was going to try to keep me out of college. It didn't happen. But I think from that day on, her mind started to changing about us. My other experience at Vernon High School, and I had some good experience, and I don't want to take up a lot of time. I had some good experience. The big thing was they had a thing that if you were going to college, they would meet with you every so often. And every time I would say, I'm going to college. Because my oldest brother had gone to college, my oldest sister had gone to college, my younger brother had joined the military. I was going to college, so I don't think they believed that. But because of the background that I had, and because of the connection I had with Florida A&M University, I was admitted. Other than that, I could go on and on. The one thing I know that really got to this lady was on February 27th in 1967, there was a bombing in Natchez, Mississippi. And the person that was blown up in the bombing was a man by the name of Wherlis Jackson. And it happened on a Monday. And she came in that Tuesday or Wednesday one talking about it. And, and the bombing was because he had received a job with, I think, Goodyear or Goodrich, somebody. They had made him supervisor. And the people in Natchez, the workers, they put a bomb under his car. What she did not know is that Wherlis Jackson was born and raised in Vernon, Florida. And his family was still there. And she started talking about it with us in the room. And the fact was, we had to, as the young people say today, we had to check her. And I think that also changed her mind. Now, like I said, I had good times, but there were some things that left me with some scars. But, thank God today, I'm pretty well over it. I'm 75 years old. I'm pretty well over it. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Rice.
In 1950, I was at Curtis Junior High School. My dad had a long talk with me before I went and told me, you put your clothes on like everybody else, 1 foot at a time through your pants. But most of when I first got there, I fought for every night for a week because of the N-word. And I found out that I couldn't beat that out of anybody. So most of my experiences in athletics. At Curtis Junior High, there was only 4 of us blacks in my class from McKinley. And 3 of us were athletes. I knew I could compete athletically. And my 8th grade year, we went undefeated. My 9th grade year, we went undefeated in basketball. But the big experience I had was when we got to Topeka High School in 1953. Topeka High was integrated, but blacks couldn't play football in 1950. They couldn't play football or basketball. Only thing they could do was run track. In 1953, the first black maid played basketball and football. Time I got there in 53, I signed up as a quarterback. I was little. And our freshman team went undefeated at me as starting quarterback. It's junior year, we went undefeated. My senior year, we scrimmaged. I got called down to the office for my first game. The principal, dean of boys, and the coach says, we can't start you a quarterback because you're black. We can't have an all-black backfield. So I never told anybody about, but we'll let you be our defensive captain. And we went undefeated. So at our 50th anniversary, I came in to, and one of the coaches back then says, that was our starting quarterback to the starting quarterback. He said, why? And he said, because you had a all black guy, we couldn't have that. Most of my friends from junior high all the way through high school were white. Because we only represented, let me see, out of 805, 20 of us graduated were black. At Topeka High School, I never got to take a swimming lesson or participate in swimming in gym because they shut the pool down because they didn't want us to be in the swimming pool with the white kids. Now, we could shower with them, but we couldn't get in the swimming pool. Now, sitting here, I can sit here and tell you all these sad stories through my life. Like I've been the first black quarterback in Big High's history. I was hired as a fireman for 5 years at an all-black fire station in Topeka. They finally, after 5 years, they integrated, put one of us at each day at each station. We couldn't sleep in the white man's bed. We had to sleep in our own black man's bed. So one day I go in, they were shooting pool, and I'm sitting there. They stopped shooting pool. We left the other room. So one of them, I finally asked them, what's wrong with me? And they said, how many white women are you dating? I said, I'm married to a black woman, and I have black kids. That's all you need to know. And I said, one of these days, at the black fire department, we were trained to put a sponge in our pockets. So those guys used these tanks on their back and all. I wet the sponge and put it in my mouth. And I could eat as much smoke as I could. You can. And I kept telling them, one of these days that tank will run out and you're going to need me to take you out. And I'm going to walk away. So I was the first black parole officer. I worked at Hercules Powder. I was the first black fireman. I opened up the first halfway house in the state of Kansas for ex-offenders. I've done a lot of things, and my life has been good to me, but I had to pay the price to get there. Now, one of the things in my household, I was the oldest of 7. My dad told me every day that you need to get your education. If you want to be a success, you need to get an education. And I did that. But I had to leave Topeka. I had to leave Kansas to do it.
All right.
Now-
Oh.
As he said, he had to leave Kansas to do it. I had to leave Washington County. I don't know how rural Kansas is, but as I told Troy, we just got our first traffic light this year. Okay, that's how rural we were. We still are. In my hometown, in the south part of the county, well, they're in the county, there still is an industry. We're real close to the Panama City Beach, and that's basically was all the employment. Nobody to me, other than the school bus driver and the one black teacher, everybody else worked in another county. So as he said about sports, band, we could not participate in that because when you live 32 miles one way and your parents worked in another county, who's going to pick you up from school for the after school activities? It made it a lot easier for us to participate in after school activities when we went to a school that was only 10 miles from my house. All right. So that to me was a real big disadvantage, sir, of segregation.
Am I on? Oh, okay. So I have did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. So I had these questions, but you've actually answered most of them with your personal stories. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is ask Corey to bring in Clinton and see if they have questions. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask people in the room, if you have questions. I guess I'll come around. I'll leave the stage and come around. And then also people online, if you have questions. So we'll start with Clinton this time, and then we'll come back to the room. So Brian, do you guys have any questions? He's muted.
Hey, it's Kathleen. I have a question, and I hate to say it, we missed the very first part of this. But my question is about the decision to be a part of desegregation in all these different instances that you guys have mentioned, but particularly thinking about school desegregation. Like, was it something that you wanted to do? Was it something that your parents encouraged you to do? How old were you? What were your motivations there?
So go ahead. Sorry.
I like to say all elementary schools in Topeka, Kansas, when I was there, you had to go to them. I would take the bus to McKinley, and I would pass 2 white schools to get to McKinley. That's the way it was. You went to the school in your district, no matter if you were all white. Now, the white schools had Native Americans and Hispanics. Blacks had only blacks.
So before you answer this question, the question was, what motivated you? What was the decision? She missed the first half. How did you make the decision to desegregate? If it was voluntary? But you have left out a very important part of that story that I know.
That I signed my mom's name.
Yeah,
to.
that part.
Yes. As I said earlier, number one, my motivation was that I wanted to see if I could compete. Number two, we had to ride 32 miles one way, which was 64 miles round trip, but you had to add on all the little roads they had to go down to pick up the kids. So it probably was 70 miles or more. And like I said, probably the third thing was, I wanted to be in some kind of activities and I couldn't. But that's basically, yes, what happened was the first year of Freedom of Choice came out, I wanted to go. And that was 1965. My mom messed around and she was working. Because my parents had divorced by that time. And my mom was working a full-time job on Panama City Beach. Plus, my mom was in the industry of raising hogs. In fact, she sent all of us to college. Was she raised and sold hogs to different people as well as to the farmers market. So I guess she kind of forgot to sign it. Well, the second year, I was like, okay, I had to make sure my mom, I'm going to sign this, which I did. But my mom didn't, it was fine with her. She didn't have a problem with that. That's like I said, my mom was big on education. She only had an 8th grade education at that time. But then when I was a junior in college, she went back before I became a junior in college, but she graduated from high school when I was a junior in college. So she really did not mind that I chose to attend. Her only problem is I was feisty. And like you said, you fought.
Mhm.
I did too. And she was a little afraid that because the Klans were still very prevalent in our area. And, she thought something might happen. And she, being that she was a divorced woman, she could not protect me. And but my sister, I'm a few years behind my other sisters and brothers, and they were all gone. So it was only she and I home. So I think that was it as far as. But your story is, you're right. I did tell you that I did sign the application myself. It's okay. Okay.
Something to say. When I was going to all these black schools, Monroe and McKinley, during my transfer, I had to fight because of the complexion of my skin. Now, we sit around and talk about how you white people discriminate against us. We do it to ourselves. And that's something we don't talk about.
Right?
He's correct. He's correct. Because we were from the south of Washington County. We always had problems with the kids that lived in Chipley and went to school. We always had problems with them. And we were, and as he said, if you were lighter skinned, as he said, you had problems.
Mhm.
Well, you really had problems. So, yes, sir, you're right. There is some things in our own culture that we don't really talk about.
All right, I'm going to ask Clinton again. Do you have any questions, Kathleen or Brian?
Yeah, actually, we have two, so I'll start with this one. This is from a teacher. I continue to hear how desegregation actually hurt African American children. They lost their identity because their history wasn't taught. They had to assimilate into the white culture to be accepted. Is this something that you can relate to? That you felt like you had to act in a different way, or there weren't as many opportunities as you had at the before? Like, I know sometimes you weren't able to do extracurricular activities, but just kind of the overall impact do you think it also hurt some Black children, desegregation?
desegregation for me, I did feel like I lost something. As I said earlier, I had great teachers. I had teachers who knew me. I had teachers who knew my family. I had every teacher, if I told you the story, well, let me, it take a little long. My first grade teacher was my father's first cousin. My second grade teacher was my godmother. My third grade teacher was my mother's best friend. My fourth grade teacher was friends to my older brother, because by that time he was out of college and teaching school. My fifth grade teacher was again my godmother. My sixth grade teacher was friends to my brother and my sister. And all of that, the principal at the school was my oldest brother, best friend. In fact, if you all want to know the truth, the first time I got a whipping in school was from that principal. And his talk was worse than the whipping I got. But that's another story. And when I got to high school, everybody knew. Well, when I got to Vernon, nobody knew. I mean, the principal didn't know, so it was really different. I don't think, a lot of people said, well, integration. I don't think any of us was ever looking for integration. We were looking for equalization. I think definitely in the South, we wanted, equal. Not so much, we didn't want to, but if like he said, if he was the quarterback, he was the best, he should have been the quarterback. But at the time you couldn't. The only boy that was in our class was very good at sports. He was very good at baseball, football, basketball. He was so good that some of the schools refused to play us. Okay. He was so good that they went to one school one Friday night to play football, and he ran so many touchdowns on them, that the police had to come on the field and get him. Drive on the field, put him in the car. Coach asked, put him in the car, and drove him. And then when the bus left, they picked him up with a couple of the guys that the coach had sent with him. Which didn't make sense to me. But she said, I think I lost some of my identity, because out of 6 people, 4 of us came from the same church. And our pastor, the lady that was my godmother, they had all taught us, and they had told us, this is how you have to act, because they're looking at you, people are coming along behind you, and if you mess up, it's gonna mess up everybody else behind you. So you basically had to be really, really things that were done to you, you had to accept, because otherwise, hey, I'm standing up for somebody else. I'm standing up for 6th graders, the 5th graders that has to come through this school, because I think it was 2 years after I graduated, it was fully integrated. I think it was 2 years. So.
Whatever happened to the saying, it takes a village and a community to raise a child? When I was a child, everybody in the 3 or 4 block area had the same responsibility that my parents had. I acted up there, my parents gave them permission to whip my butt. And we seem nowadays want to put all that responsibility on teachers. These are kids. We're looking for excuses not to raise our kids. And I think that we need to go back to it takes a neighborhood to raise our children. Even today, if I see somebody older than me, which is very few, because I'm 86, I still say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, no, sir, whatever. That's the way I was brought up, to respect my elders. I did some substitute teaching. The kids were dancing on the desk. And I told them after I calmed them down, I says, I want to talk to you after class. One of them ran out. So I'm sitting down doing the paperwork for the principal. He comes back. He walked up to me and says, what the hell do you want with me? I said, I want your parents here, so I slapped the shit out of them because I can't touch you.
Okay. We have a question online and then we'll come back to Clinton. And this question is just what major did you pursue in college? What major did you pursue in college?
My major was criminology with a minor in social work.
I have a double major in college. It's psychology and juvenile justice. And then, and before I got to college, the counselor told me I should go to a trade school.
Something that was often done to Black
Well,
children, no matter what their academic.
they often do that.
Yeah, no
often
matter
do
what they
that.
were, how they did academically, were encouraged to go to trade schools.
I was blessed. When I was in 11th grade, the federal government started a program called Upward Bound. And I don't know if any of you all remember or know about Upward Bound. And Upward Bound took high school students to universities for the summer and showed them university life. Before that time, the farthest I had ever been out of Washington County, I had an uncle that lived in Pensacola, and I had an uncle that lived in Tallahassee. And we would travel on the Greyhound bus to see both of them. Okay. But on the Upward Bound, I got to explore some places. And my first pick for a college major was biology. But then I realized I didn't like dissecting. Okay. But that was my first major. But once, I got that exposure, then I knew that because my mom was always saying college. But I knew then definitely my goal was to attend college. And I chose Florida A&M University. And that was because, and I had scholarships, I had offers to other schools, but I chose Florida A&M University. And I think it was because number one, my oldest brother had gone there. Number two, some of the things that happened to me at Vernon High School made me want to get back into an environment where I felt important. I felt empowered to know that I found some love there. I guess that's what I'm saying. And so they then had a program. I think the program was called the 13 College Curriculum Program. I don't know if anybody of you ever heard of that, if it's just a Southern thing. But that my first 2 years of college was under that program. And so, that basically, so then that's why I went into basically social work and criminology, because I did see what was happening, even back in there, the justice system in our county. And I knew that there were things that were not right. Okay. So that piqued my interest as far as Dr. Charles Smith. you know, he was Apalachicola born. Well, no, he wasn't, but he piqued my interest. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go back to Clinton while I come down for us here in person.
All right, so both of you have kind of talked about your parents encouraging you with your education. How do you feel about how our current education system has failed students of color? How can we reach students who don't take education seriously because of generational poverty, discrimination, lack of motivation? So thinking more contemporary, how do you think the education system has failed students of color, continues to fail students of color, and how can we reach those students?
You want to hear the truth? We're looking to educate these kids when you know they got to educate themselves. We give them the opportunity, like when I've been counseling people for 50 some years. I never straightened anybody out. They straighten themselves. I have all the information, just like a school teacher. I give them that information. It's up to them to take what we give them to be successful.
As long, this is my personal opinion, as long as there are failure in the family and the community and the churches, there will be failure in education. Teachers can't straighten that out. Until we straighten parents, community, and churches out, teachers is fighting a losing battle. That's my personal opinion. Because this thing that, and I hate it, single mothers can't, raise kids. My mom had 4 kids when she and my dad divorced. My mother straight up told us, I'm not coming to jail to get you. Now, you can do some foolish things you want to, but one thing I'm not going to do is come to the jail and get you, because I got 4 of y'all to feed. Okay? You will not bring bad grades in this house. Okay? That was her attitude. That was her attitude. And we knew every Sunday, I tell young people now, you all have it real good, because there were 3 churches in my neighborhood. 3 churches. With a Pentecostal holiness, there was a Baptist church, and there were AME church. My mother belonged to the AME church. On Sunday morning, while my mother was cooking breakfast, she would send us to the holiness church for church school. She'd pick us up. We go to the Methodist church for church service. I went to BTU. Most of you don't know what that is, but that's the Baptist Training Union. I went to YPD, which is the AME church training. I also went to the Pentecostal holiness training. So, I guess church was the motivation for us. I don't know. But to me, it was the discipline. It was the discipline. It was my mom. I don't think nobody ever called my mom and said, we cut up, any of us cut up, because my mom was going to see you at church, see you somewhere in the community. So I think if we can get these parents to understand that 60 to 70% of the job to educate is their problem and not the teacher's problem, not the school system problems. And I understand that there are teachers leaving just leaving the profession. And I hate to see that, because you have good teachers with good experience, with good minds. And between that, there, as the old people say, the rock in a hard place, because all these things are coming down on them from the top, and the parents are coming up from the bottom, and they're caught in the middle.
All right. Is that all, Kathleen, or do you have more questions at Clinton?
Joy.
Yes.
Okay, so question, how are you able to carry the burdens? And by burdens, I also mean hopes and dreams of everyone. It sounds like you had, as a young person, you were not just representing yourself, but representing members of your community. How are you prepared to carry that load? You talked a little bit about the load itself, but what gave you that strength to carry that burden?
I hate for people to tell me I can't do it. You tell me I can't do it, I'm going to do it. And my parents gave me that to believe in myself.
That's my attitude. Don't tell me what I can't do it. Now, it might take me 2 or 3 times to do it, but I will get it accomplished. My daughter can tell you that I also kind of carried on my mother's attitude. You will get an education. And she can tell you we're on like the 3rd or 4th generation that has attended Florida A&M University, and some there now. But that was the whole thing in our family. That was the whole thing. Like I said, my church taught to us a lot, about, and I won't call it a burden, but that we had a responsibility. And I think that's missing today too, that we don't tell our children, our grandchildren, that you have a responsibility, not only to your family. What I used to say, Joy, I used to say, when you walk out this door, you're representing the family. So whatever you do, don't bring any shame on the family. And she could tell you, I used to say that all the time. That's, so I didn't see it as a burden. Like I said, I only saw it as a responsibility. And I think that we got to get back to the fact that we have got to let our children know that wherever they go, whatever they do, they still have too many of us today think of our responsibility is only to ourselves. Okay.
Co-sign.
Kathleen?
All right, Joy, several years. You there, Joy?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Joy, several years ago, you and I did a program in which we both shared pictures of our kindergarten or 1st grade class. How many people of color were in your picture?
Ooh, I believe there were 3 of us in my kindergarten class. Me, my cousin Shannon, and a little girl whose name I can't remember because I don't think I saw her after kindergarten. I think there were 3.
And in my kindergarten class, there was 1 young man, Mark Robinson. And our kindergarten classes were at least 10 years apart. So you told me a story one time about some discrimination that you faced with regard to the gifted and talented program. And I wondered if you would share that. It just, everything else that's been said reminded me of that.
Oh, you put me on the spot. Okay, so my mom's here, so she could probably help me with this. But where I'm from, gifted starts in the 3rd grade, and the 3rd grade was my first actually was the first Black teacher I ever had, was my 3rd grade teacher. And when I got to her class, she recommended me for the gifted class. And so I took the test and I passed the test, but they told my mom there was no room in the gifted class, even though gifted didn't start till 3rd grade. So I never did get into the gifted class, but what I found out is the next year I had a set of twins that I had gone to school with, and they had taken the test for gifted several times until they got a high enough score to be considered gifted. And they put them right in the class in 4th grade. But no one ever came back and said, there's room in the gifted class for you. So I never did get into the gifted class. That's right. So yeah, that's my story, I guess.
Sorry to put you on the spot. I just felt like it fit with some of the other things that we were talking about.
No, I understand. And I think that is something to be understood, that, segregation didn't just knock out, racism and discrimination. So.
It's all here.
It is.
You have to understand that Joy never lived in what you would call a Black community. She was, in fact, for several years, we were the only Black family in our subdivision. Am I right? Yeah. Till you all, because we were. So the school that you all attend, they had, I think it was a countywide thing, the gifted program. And even though I went to them and they made all kind of excuse, but then I said, why? Why should I be bothered? I'm college trained. My sister's college trained. I got a whole lot of folks in my family that's college trained. I know how to deal with this. Nobody's going to be as smarter than she is. She'll be able to do it. She'll be able to accomplish. And that's what I set out to do, because she can tell you, I would buy books. I would buy all kind of education material. She's laughing because that's the way it was. Because I knew that I had to step up to make sure it was nobody's responsibility to educate our children, but my husband and I, and that the teachers were there to support us, to help, but it was not their responsibilities.
Any questions in this room? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, I don't see any other online. I will check back again with Clinton, make sure, Kathleen, that you guys don't have any more questions.
I think we are good. We just want to, I think we're good. We just want to thank the panelists for sharing their stories with us today.
All right, and
Thank you all for letting us.
Thank you so much.
I will share that. Thank you. I will thank you all for your attention and for your participation. This is our last program for the day here at Eisenhower. I do believe they are still doing some teacher stuff at Clinton. But for the rest of you, tomorrow we will be live from Brown v. Board. So please join us. We'll be excited to see you on that day. But again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you for coming and have a great evening.
Thank you.